It off? Good afternoon, everybody. I feel like, is it on? It is on. It's not on. I don't think we could hear anything here. Is it on? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 15th SANDAG Public Safety Committee meeting. Before we start, I would like to ask our interpreter to be introduced and walk us through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is an announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, the world, and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, or tablet and whatnot, please press the ellipsis, then the interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Este es un aviso por parte del intérprete. Para poder hacer uso de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, el globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom en celular o tableta, presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, que es silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Bienvenidos.
Thank you so much. Why don't we begin with a Pledge of Allegiance? And Mr. Blackburn, can you please lead us? Thank you. Before we jump into the meeting, can we confirm that we have quorum?
Yes, Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. Just a reminder for those online or in person that wish to speak, you could simply fill out a speaker slip here or raise your icon button on the online. If any members would like to speak at any point, feel free to just raise your hand. So moving on to item number 1, that is public comments, public or member comments. Do we have any comments from the public?
No public comments.
Any comments from committee members? I do believe we have an update from Mr. Tony Ray.
Yes, thank you. So a lot has been happening at SANDAG since we last have been together, including some big changes coming soon. Hassan has announced that his last day with the agency will be December 29th. So Chairwoman Vargas will lead the transition as the board begins a nationwide search for our next CEO. Along with a new CEO, we'll be getting a new home. We signed a 15-year lease with a new office space at West in downtown San Diego across from the depot, and we're going to be moving to our new home in December of 24. And if you look out that window, it'd be the nice shiny building with a crane on top with the windows almost to the top. That's where our new home is going to be. It's an amazing space and it'll have great public access on the first floor. On Friday, we announced a $1 million in grant funding from the United States Environmental Protection Agency for regional climate action planning. The board of directors also appointed a new independent performance auditor on Friday, and Courtney Ruby will begin working with us on November 13th. Over the last month, we've collaborated with our partners at the state and federal level to continue working towards a vision for the region. With our partners at Caltrans, we celebrated the grand opening of the San Elijo Activity Hub Park and Ride in Encinitas with our partners at Caltrans. We joined our partners at MTS, the City of Chula Vista, and the U.S. Department of Transportation to announce federal funding for the Palomar Grade Separation Project. We traveled to Sacramento and met with our delegation and administration officials. And we hosted the White House Director of Intergovernmental Affairs with Caltrans and the Airport Authority to highlight some of our regional projects. We appreciate the Airport Authority's partnership as we continue to bring the Airport Transition Connection project to life. Progress continues on the proposed amendment to the 2021 Regional Plan, and the final amendment and the EIR will be brought back to the board consideration at the October 27th meeting. We're currently meeting with each of the subregions to give community members an opportunity to learn more about future transportation improvements being considered for the 2025 Regional Plan. Last month, we held an open house in Del Mar to talk with the community about the Losan Rail Realignment Project. This is an important project, not just for San Diego region, but for the state of California and the rest of the country. We appreciate the discussion that came out of the open house, and we are thankful for the tremendous support we've received from our state and federal partners. SANDAG has also partnered with 211 San Diego, the San Diego Futures Foundation, and the County of San Diego to get Connected, a series of digital literacy classes, which will be free and will cover both basic computer skills and internet safety. And then last but not least, on the SANDAG report, we look forward to bringing you future updates on what we're doing to advance the Blue Line Express and the Purple Line projects as well. In terms of ARGIS, I'd like to introduce our new manager of regional information services. This is Noy Lithiavong. To my left, he comes to us after 20 years with the United States Air Force and 10 years with the San Diego Sheriff's Department. Noy, would you like to say hello?
Thank you for the introduction, Tony. Honored to be here. Looking forward to this meeting and many more meetings. We can work together to discuss public safety. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to assigning Noy a lot of stuff to do while he's coming here and in the future coming on down. I'm glad to have you here, Noy. Thank you. Hey, last week, ARGIS attended the California Crime and Intelligence Analysts Association Conference here in San Diego. We got a lot of positive comments, a lot of positive reports from analysts from outside the region who said that they did not have an information sharing hub like we actually have here in San Diego. So it was very positive for San Diego and hopefully some new customers down the road in that area. Also on Tuesday, September 12th, ARGIS held a community meeting with members at the National City Hall, and thank you for hosting, Chair Rodriguez. Attendees included members from the Alliance San Diego, the San Diego Immigration Rights Consortium, the ACLU, and other groups. And what we talked about was how ARGIS operates, the purpose, the operations, how we go out doing our business, and how that relates to SB 54. I think it was a very good discussion, conversation. It lasted about an hour and a half. We have a number of questions we have to answer, and then we'll give back to the groups when we meet on the next time. And I'm looking forward to, on our November Public Safety Committee group, doing a refresh and update on ARGIS and SB 54. Now, ARGIS did this in December of 2019, but it's been 4 years and there's been some questions, some news articles. So we thought it would be time to do that. So we'll be doing that in November of this year. And that's my report. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Any questions or comments from committee members? I would like to state thank you to SANDAG staff for being so attentive to community and city's needs. I know that us in National City, we bug them about a million different things. So really want to commend the work that you all are doing during a tumultuous time, right? With our executive director moving on. So thank you all so much. It's inspiring to hear about future projects still being planned out. Thinking of public transit, the Purple Line, the Blue Line, all these are great public investments that our community will benefit from for decades to come. So thank you so much for all the good work. Very much appreciated. And welcome aboard, by the way. You're welcome. All right, so moving on to consent. That is item number 2. It is approving the meeting minutes. Are there any public comments on this item?
No public comments.
Any comments from committee members? No?
Move to approve.
We got a motion by Mr. Musgrove. Thank you. Second by, I'm sorry, Paul Connolly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion. Do we have to? Yeah, I guess we could do it. Yeah, why don't we do that? I guess we could press our clickers. Is everybody in?
There you go. And that item passes.
Thank you. Moving on to reports, item number 3, Public Safety Committee reports with Chief K from Coronado Police Department and Chief McQueed from Rancho Santa Fe Fire District will present a report on recent meetings of the Chiefs and Sheriff's Management Committee and the San Diego County Fire Chiefs Association, respectively.
Good afternoon, Chair Rodriguez, Vice Chair Minto isn't here today, Council and all new members. I'm Chuck Kay. I'm the Chief of Police for the Coronado Police Department and Chief and Sheriff's Management Committee Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present an update from the Chiefs and Sheriffs. I provided an update from the group during the last Public Safety Committee meeting in June. However, the Chiefs and Sheriffs haven't had an opportunity to meet since due to scheduling conflicts. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 1st. This past Tuesday, the San Diego County Sheriffs were gracious enough to organize and host a countywide mobile field force training for all agencies in response to any possible emergencies coming up. That is all.
All right, so I got a couple months to catch up here with you guys. So good afternoon, Chair, and everybody else that is involved with this committee. Covering the San Diego County resource deployment. So we've had numerous fires both in county and out of county. So that required strike teams to be deployed out of San Diego. I'm the North Zone coordinator, and I work with Chief Dan Barron from San Marcos, and he is the op coordinator. We also deployed a Cal OES strike team to Eugene, Oregon, just before Tropical Storm Hillary arrived here. And that was under the Emergency Management Assistant Compact, so also called EMAC. Tropical Storm Hillary came into town. We had deployed 2 OES pre-positioned strike teams and 4 swiftwater teams throughout the county, just in preparation. Better be prepared than anything else. We also approved 2 operational policies. One was the multi-casualty incident, also called an MCI, and then the serious incident review team. And this is in case an agency has a serious event, we will deploy a team and they'll do the investigation and work with that department. There was also an Explorer Expo held in June. This provided a valuable opportunity for colleges and fire departments to provide an exposure and information to youth interested in getting into the fire service, since most of us are dealing with personnel being hired. We continue to have discussions at the county level with regards to AB 40, and this is the impacts of what we call the ambulance patient offload time, or called APOT. And this is the time between when an ambulance shows up at the back door of a hospital and the patient is actually transferred from the ambulance gurney to a hospital gurney. So more to come on that. There is a positive momentum of Escondido Fire Dispatch now coming over to Northcom. That'll go in front of their city council in October. And hopefully it'll be launched in early of 2024. Obviously, this is going to enhance our service and automatic aid between Escondido Fire and the adjacent agencies such as San Marcos Fire and Rancho Santa Fe. And then lastly, we had the retirement of Fire Chief Rick Vogt. He used to attend this meeting also, and he retired July 16th. The new fire chief at Escondido Fire is John Tanger. End of report.
Thank you so much, Chief. Any questions from the members of the public?
No public comments.
Any comments or questions from committee members? All right, thank you all so much for the information. This is only an informational item, so moving on to item number 4, where we have Dr. Rodriguez speak about the overall work program and budget.
Mr. Chair Rodriguez, Vice Chair Minto, members of the committee, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me here today. In 2016, Proposition 64 legalized the commercialization and recreational use of cannabis in California. As part of this law, the California Board of State and Community Corrections was tasked to provide grant funds to local governments that assist with law enforcement, fire protection, or other local programming to address public health and safety associated with the recreational use of cannabis. In 2021, the police departments of San Diego, Chula Vista, and La Mesa were awarded Proposition 64 grants to reduce the impact of the law's passage on the citizens by increasing awareness of dangers of cannabis, providing counseling to at-risk youth, investigating cannabis-related crimes, and taking enforcement on illegal cannabis businesses. SANDAG was asked by these 3 police departments to be the evaluation partner for their projects. In 2022, the San Diego and Chula Vista police departments were awarded new Proposition 64 grants to continue their work on this field. And both departments asked SANDAG to serve again as a project evaluator for this specific projects. If approved, SANDAG will continue working with both San Diego Police Department and Chula Vista Police Department to monitor the implementation, as well as documenting and assessing their goals, outcomes for the respective projects. Thus, the Public Safety Committee is asked to approve 2 separate items to approve the amendment of the fiscal year 2024 overall work program, or OWP, and the budget to accept $245,000 respectively for the projects in funding that come from the Board of State and Community Corrections through the Chula Vista and the San Diego Police Department. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Any questions from members of the public? Or comments? Sorry.
No public comments?
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee? Yes, Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Fabio, for the presentation. I know that this is really important.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Blackburn. Yes, Mayor Minto.
I guess I like getting money anytime we can. And that way we can make sure all the tax money comes back to us in some way. What exactly, I mean, I was looking through this and other than a lot of a synopsis and stuff, what are they doing with it? I think that's fair if we're gonna take money, and stuff, and we know what they're doing with it, especially if we're evaluating it. So I'm sure somebody over there does know, especially the evaluators, right?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mayor Minto. Generally speaking, each police department designs its own projects, its own methodologies to work under these grants, but mostly they address, on the one side, enforcement. So that goes specifically to the police department and the operational side of it, and also public education. And most of the public education component is done in collaboration with civil society organizations. And it's mostly public education at schools, mainly elementary and high schools, and trying to provide different levels of different courses that give different levels of awareness and knowledge about not only the use, but also the dangers of the consumption of cannabis. And in our role as project evaluators, we on the one hand collect that information from the enforcement or operational side of it, and kind of generate a little bit of analysis and provide trends and highlights on the success or the progress of these programs. And in the public education side, we conduct surveys to know, or to try to gauge the level of knowledge and understanding of those attending, either students or even parents that also are part of these projects.
That's great. Is there a way to get some kind of milestone report at sometime? Because if we, we're out arresting people, and nowadays for cannabis, it's hard to arrest people unless they do something really stupid. Okay, I just answered my question. And then when it comes to the education part, if there's an absolute evidence to a reduction in, use, whether it's legal or otherwise, especially amongst the youth, I'd like to see something like that, but I am in favor of the grant. I just want to make sure that since we're spending taxpayers' money, that we actually get full disclosure on what's happening and how it's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Mr. Musgrove.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Piggybacking on what Mayor Minto said, can we get a report back at some point on the deliverables for this, so we know exactly how the money is being expended? And can you tell us who the third agency was that was not selected? Or was it a regional agency?
So the first time that we collaborated with police departments, it was Chula Vista, San Diego, and La Mesa. For the second round of funding, La Mesa decided not to participate. So we only collaborated with San Diego and Chula Vista. And of course, I'll be happy to provide an update. We have been working this project a little over a year, so we have We have data, we have some important highlights to share with this group. So I'll be happy to include that in the coming one of the coming meetings.
So is this a supplemental then for ongoing projects?
So this will be a different project that will continue the work of the previous grants, because the previous grants have a cycle. Once the cycle ends, the new cycle will start.
Okay. Looking forward to the report back. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Just really quick, in the report, it states that part of the objective is also to shut down illegal dispensaries around the region, or at least in San Diego and Chula Vista, and we find that critical. They seem to pop up and it's hard to take them down. So I think that's critical. And also the education and prevention for marijuana use for minors is critical. I mean, there's a lot of studies that conclude that marijuana use, especially for minors, have a deep mental, and biological negative impact on them. So this is very important. So thank you. We definitely look forward to the report back as well.
Can I add to that, please? Being with San Diego Police Department, and since Prop 64 and the establishment of all the legal and illegal dispensaries that we see pop up, we do have a specific team at San Diego PD that is designated just to addressing dispensaries. And so this type of funding is extremely useful and effective for us. And it's actually a very time-consuming effort for our department to keep up with all of the marijuana activities in the city, if you will.
Thank you, Assistant Chief. Very much appreciated. With that said, no other comments or questions. This is is this an informational? No, this is we have a motion and a second. Why don't we go ahead and vote?
I just want to clarify, you were voting on item 4 in its entirety, not just on 4A as the slide shows. So
yeah, thank you for the clarification. So we're voting for both items. That is 4A and 4B. That includes funding for San Diego and Chula Vista. Is that okay with the maker of the motion? Fantastic. Oh, I was apparently holding up the vote. Sorry about that.
And both items pass.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5. This is a informational item presented by Naomi Young.
Good afternoon. My name is Naomi Young. I'm a principal economist at SANDAG, and I'm going to, thank you for allowing me to give you a brief overview of the regional plan and some of the highlights about what we're seeing for the future of San Diego's region. The regional plan is a long-term blueprint of how we expect the San Diego region to develop and grow. We generally think of it as a transportation plan, but it covers many important issues, including the type of land development that we expect around the region, how the region will accommodate housing needs of the future, what we will protect in the environment and our natural resources, and also the strategies for addressing climate change. As a designated metropolitan planning agency and a regional transportation agency, SANDAG is responsible for developing and implementing this regional plan. By federal and state law, we have to update the regional plan every 4 years, and it has to look out at least 20 years using the best available information and planning assumptions. Having a current and compliant regional plan is very important because it's the basis for us accessing and bringing state and federal dollars that are the majority of the funding for our regional transportation. The regional plan is guided by a set of visions and goals, and we update these based on feedback through working groups and community workshops. The vision and goals for our regional 2025 plan are on this slide. A couple of key changes that are worth highlighting is that SAFE is a new goal that's been added based on overwhelming feedback, especially from the board's adoption of Biz Zero resolution. We also heard that a goal around health should be inclusive of community's environment. The previous plan has changed from a goal of fast transportation to convenient, and this reflects the fact that fast may conflict with safe, and that what people really want is convenient and convenient and reliable transportation regardless of the mode. The regional plan has several major components, but at the core of it is data and modeling. And we use this as the foundation for thinking about how population, housing, and employment forecasts, as well as for collecting travel data. We can all appreciate how important the data is in order to make decisions, especially after we've had so many disruptions and shifts over the last 4 years. We also have to develop a fiscally constrained plan that's based on reasonably foreseeable local, state, federal revenue. And this is led by our finance department. Knowing what we need and the resources available, we have to create a comprehensive plan of projects, programs, and policies with cost estimates that are phased over the life of the plan. And with that, we have environmental impact reports to accompany those projects. And throughout this process, we don't do this in a vacuum. So we do outreach and engagement that's guided by our public involvement. So with that background on what the regional plan is, I'm going to shift gears and actually share with you what the Series 15 forecast is saying, or what we expect the future of San Diego to look like. The 2025 regional plan is relies on this regional forecast. Right now, the one that we're developing is called Series 15, and it has a time horizon that extends from 2022 to 2060. This time horizon is 10 years longer than the actual regional plan, and in part, that's because the last decade, you're going to see, has some really strong implications, and their trends become a lot more evident in the last 10 years, so from 2050 to 2060. Our Series 15 regional forecast is really made up of 3 main projections: population, housing, and jobs. However, in developing, the effort starts with projecting population, knowing what the age, sex, race, and ethnic composition of our communities look like over time, combined with a variety of factors, including historical trends and current conditions, informs our projections about housing and jobs. It helps us to understand what kind of housing the region will need and how much labor is available to fill jobs that are created. The 3 forecasts draw on expert input through formal peer reviews, as well as comparing our assumptions and predictions to other models, including other metropolitan area, organizations in California. All right, now we get to the interesting part. So what I'm going to do is give you high-level takeaways about what we expect to change in our region over the next 40 years. And then after I take you through those takeaways, I'll deep dive into how we got there. So the first thing is SANDAG for the first time is projecting the region's population to decrease. However, this decrease doesn't begin until about 2042. So over the next 20 years, we expect the population to continue to grow, adding around 150,000 people. And this is really modest growth in historical context. And then after peaking in 2042, the population begins to decrease. So by 2060, the population falls back to levels that really look like where we are in this decade. I'll talk a little bit more later about what's driving those projections. But what I really want to do is emphasize that we're not alone in downgrading population projections for the region or the country for that matter. Not surprising, this type of population growth means also that the region's getting older. So by the end of the forecast, nearly 1 in 4 people will be over the age of 65. And then while this may seem a little counterintuitive, this population projection also means that we actually get more households and we need more housing, even with the population decreasing. And this is because over time, as we have more older individuals, they tend to live alone or have fewer people in their households. And so as a result, you can think about, we just need more, we get more households. And it drives our housing growth, which is expected to slow, but not until after 2040. And then lastly, the number of jobs in our region will continue to grow. This reflects the fact that people will continue to work later in life, and also that the region's able to continue to attract talent in from our surrounding counties. So I'm going to take you through what drives these projections. Starting with population, the forecast reflects assumptions about births, deaths, and net migration. And you can see all 3 of these contribute to the decline in population as well as our population aging over time. The top line is birth rates. And what you can see is that it's been falling for over a decade. And this reflects that we have younger women having lower birth rates and older women, their birth rates staying more or less stable. So by the time we hit 2060, the number of births in our region will be lower than it was in 2021. The other contributing factor are deaths in the region. And you can see that that's the bottom blue line. That's been on the rise. It's counterintuitive, but it's on the rise. So as it goes down, it means we're having more deaths. The negative means it's subtracting from our population. And this reflects the fact that the pandemic, along with increased rates of alcohol and other drug abuse and mental health illness, has been on the rise. Our model assumes that there will be improvements in infant mortality, but the rates are stable for all other age groups. So by the time we hit 2060, there'll be over 40,000 deaths in our region, which is considerably higher than what we've been experiencing. And then lastly, net migration reflects both domestic and foreign migration in and out of San Diego. For the past 2 decades, the net domestic migration has been an outflow, while international migration has typically been positive. In recent years, this inflow hasn't been enough to offset outflow, so we've had population loss or slowdown. But you can also see that in the Series 15 projections, we're actually assuming a reversal of this out-migration. So in the first half of our forecast, net migration increases, which helps to drive our population growth. And then in the second half of the forecast, it goes to 0. So that's contributing to the decline. Not surprising, one of the things that does continue with expectations is that the region continues to become more diverse. We can see this in our population projection model, which looks at, it's a cohort component model, so it looks at age, sex, race, and ethnicity. And what's been happening statewide and nationally is also happening here, which is that Asian population is expected to rise faster than others. And this reflects that the births, long life expectancy and migration trends. Non-Hispanic white alone population is expected to shrink in part due to mortality associated with the baby boomer generation and out-migration. And then the other groups show that they're expected to be fairly stable as their share of our population. As I mentioned earlier, population is projected to be getting older. This chart shows the age composition for different age categories in 2000, 2010, 2020, and 2060. A lot of bars, but what I really want you to do is focus on the first bar, which is the blue bar, and then the last bar, which is the purple bar for each of those years. The first bar, the blue one on the left, represents our youth. You can see for the last 20 years, so in 2000, 2010, and even up to 2020, that the people under the age of 18 made up about a quarter of our population. But if you look to the last chart for 2060, you see that that's going to fall to less than a fifth. So that's a big change in our age demographic for that age group. Now I want you to focus on the older population. So that's going to be the purple bars. And what you can see is that for our senior population, they've made up around 10 to 15% of our population for the last 20 years. But by the time we get to 2060, they're about a quarter of our population. Consistent with this type of change in the age composition, ooh, thank you for whoever's moving the cursor. Consistent with this, the median age is expected to rise from 36 to 42 over our forecast period. As I mentioned, because we have an aging population, we actually end up having a growth in households, and this is reflective of older people living alone. So when you look at this, household formation rates tend to rise with age. So you have few people between the ages of 15 and 24 that form their own households, but as they get older, they start to break out and then create their own. And so as a result, the rates go up. The highest rate for household formation is actually among the 75 plus, and this reflects the fact that they tend to live alone at that point. So finally, our job forecast in Series 15 looks really different from past projections. In this forecast, we draw on a different data set to better reflect the diversity of how we work. The job projections capture both wage and salary jobs, along with the rise of contracting and gig jobs in our economy. It also takes into account historical trends and how COVID has impacted the way we work in the industries that make up our jobs. The forecast incorporates labor force participation rates increasing over time. So in other words, we stay in the workforce longer and older. And also that more and more people are holding multiple jobs. These factors help to offset the fact that our labor force is actually falling in line with population decline. Now, while we have a declining workforce, job growth is able to continue to grow, partially because we're able to attract more people from outside our county. So over the forecast period, we expect that jobs filled by commuters to rise modestly from about 10.5% to 12.5%. This reflects the fact that the Department of Finance, who does projections for each of the counties, expects that growth in our neighboring counties like Riverside and San Bernardino will actually continue. Their populations will grow, unlike San Diego. This map gives you some historical data that shows where people have come in from the different counties. And what's worth noting is that from 2016 to 2020, this relative composition has been pretty stable. So it's about 200,000 people coming in to fill jobs each day. So to wrap up, this slide is going to show you what the Series 15 projections actually look like for population, housing, and jobs. The green line is population. You can see that the region's population grows through to about 2043, and then after that, it starts to decrease. So by 2060, we're at 3.3 million. The orange line is housing units, and you can see that it follows a slightly different trajectory. So unlike population, which is declining, the housing stock, or the number of housing units built in our region, continues to grow after population declines. This reflects, as I mentioned, the fact that we have smaller households as a result of an aging population. It also reflects the fact that we assume that our housing stock grows in pace with the housing needs in our region. So currently it's estimated that we have about 1.25 million housing units, and we expect that the number that will be built by 2050 rises to about 1.44. And then after that, it stays flat, and that reflects the fact that construction will likely refocus on renovation and replacement of existing units instead of building and adding to our supply. And then finally, you can see that job growth continues to grow. It doesn't show the decline or stagnation that you see in the housing stock. This reflects the fact that we expect people to be able to work longer, hold multiple jobs, and that also we remain competitive in bringing people in, as I mentioned earlier. So this forecast is really different from previous projections, and it's got some really big implications for how we think about policy and we envision the needs of our communities, because the communities today will look really different than the ones in the past. So this isn't a comprehensive list, but these are a couple of the things that just really jump to mind the first time we think about what this means from a safety perspective. And from an age, so just thinking about the age composition, what does it mean for our criminal justice system when the age of population affects the age groups most likely to have contact with the justice system, or when we have a higher risk of elder abuse and victimization? It also raises questions around safety, traffic safety with older driving population. When you think about the diversity of our communities changing along with the likelihood of people commuting in and out of our region on a daily basis, it raises questions about how do we staff and adapt our efforts to reflect communities that reflect the communities that we serve? Or how do we rethink crime prevention through environmental design that involves smaller households? We don't have all these questions, but the forecast is a guide for when we need to start thinking about them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know the position that you hold, Ms. Young.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a principal economist at SANDAG.
Principal economist Young. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions or comments from the members of the public?
No public comments.
Committee member comments or questions? Yes, Mayor Minto.
Hard to keep me shut up. This is excellent information. Who's responsible for determining the number of firefighters, fire stations, and police officers and police stations that we need to cover this increase in both housing industry and in the population?
That is a great question. I would like to hunt that to my colleagues. But what I will say is, you know, in anybody's defense, as I mentioned, this is a really different forecast. And so it's the first time that we really have to think about how does this look and what's the timeliness of these feeding into our planning processes. You know, we're in the early stages of sharing what our forecast looks like to actually stimulate these types of questions. So with that, I'll see if any of my colleagues have some responses. And if not, we'll get back to you with an answer.
Well, I appreciate that because we always talk about a regional transportation plan and our housing plan and all those things and how they go together.
Right.
But sometimes it seems like we forget about the ancillary things that have to be thought about that. I mean, it's one thing if you're downtown San Diego and you take out one of the older, you know, homes or 4 homes that, you know, are around, let's say, 13th and Island, we'll say. And the next thing you know, and you have a police officer that goes around those 4 homes, then all of a sudden they're gone and there's a 15-story building with, 300-400 units in it. Is that one police officer going around the block over and over again enough to patrol that increase in density and population?
Yeah.
So those are things I'd like to know about and see how we can plan for the future on that.
Yeah, those are great questions, great planning points.
The difference is that you probably need more fire trucks and firefighters to get that 15-story building also.
Yeah, just to add a comment to that. I mean, the unfortunate thing is cities and fire districts, we always operate within silos. We're looking at our borders. So sometimes we'll do the standards of coverage for your city or for your fire district, but not on a global standpoint. So there's many contractors out there or folks that will work with us as agencies and tell us how many fire stations or police stations you need for substations to make that coverage. That's a great point. You got 4 houses one day and the next day it's a 15-story complex. So you're going to end up with additional calls, both fire and police. So yeah, great point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, thank
Councilmember.
If you don't mind that, the fire protection districts are not respective per se of the city boundaries and regional boundaries because that concept is regionalization. We see it all the time. And as an example, the Vista Fire Protection District literally comes into the city of San Marcos, moving to Escondido, but we always cover each other off. But not really any discussion about regionalization of law enforcement. And like the mayor was saying, as you put more people on a smaller, a postage stamp size property, that one officer is not going to be able to cover that. So there probably needs to be some discussions moving forward about how we're going to address those calls for service.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Blackburn.
Both police and fire are very important, but I'd like to hear also the entire infrastructure to be able to handle this as well.
No, thank you. I do want to thank you for the comments, Mayor. Our city and National City, we're the densest city in the county, and we are seeing some of these effects. And our officers, as well as our fire personnel, are very quick to mention that we had not increased the amount of staff in about 15, 20 years, budgeted anyhow. So it is something that we have to constantly work on as a city. And I hope that we, working alongside SANDAG, make sure that we provide the adequate resources that are needed for our community so everybody can be safe. And it does require some vision moving forward. I do have a question regarding the population trajectory. So, I guess this is something that's some countries are already dealing with population decrease. What are some of the effects of that?
That's a really interesting question. What I'll say is that our early insights specifically to San Diego, and we haven't finished our research on how other developed countries and places have coped with this. But one of the first thing that jumps to mind is our tax revenue base. So as we have fewer people and an older population more increasingly reliant on fixed income Social Security payments, we have to start thinking about what does that mean for our revenue base to support a lot of the public sector investments. So that's one aspect. I'll stop there. That was probably a big bomb.
No, I think it's important for us to start having these conversations because there are indeed, industrialized countries around the world that are dealing with this problem, and it's a severe one. So, I can think of a few off the top of my head: Italy, the UK, Japan, China, most recently, are dealing with population decrease, and that means that their economy suffers because they don't have the ability to have more workers, and their standard of living, although is a little higher, as it was a generation ago, they don't have the ability to continue to grow economically. So,
yeah, we are fortunate that with where San Diego County sits, and given what we've seen with the other county population projections, we're projecting job growth as a result. And so that means that, our economy continues to stay vibrant and growing, which are all good signs.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question. This regional forecast on population,
was it taken into account that a lot of individuals are choosing to live in Tijuana because cost of living is lower there? We're bigger than just our county. We have a binational region. So what impact would that have? Because as more and more American citizens or individuals with work permits or legal permanent residence, lawful permanent residence, excuse me, I'm wondering if this projection takes that into account.
So that would be captured in our assumptions about net migration, the both in and out. And so we don't model specifically the flow to Tijuana. But yeah, I mean, what we do know is it's around 50,000 people that cross the border every day for daily work trips to the region. And I'd imagine that there's, a reciprocal flow. While a really important volume in a regional context, it's a small number. And that doesn't mean that it's not important to take into account. I mean, it'll play out in our sub-regional, but at a region level, it's harder to distill down.
Understood. So so you said that the workers are integrated into the migration calculation?
So, sorry, I conflated two issues. In our population projections for net migration, that's actual outflow and inflow. And in that would take into consideration not just flow to neighboring counties or outside of the state, but also into Mexico.
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that this deeply important item for many, many policymakers and implementers of policy to know moving forward, because in a blink of an eye, we'll be to 2035, right? So I think as we move forward, making sure that as we do any number of forecasts, that we contemplate population growth and labor share across the border as well, because more than just the roughly 3.5 million on this side, we're much closer to 5 when we take the whole amount in. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, is this available for us on the website, or will it be available for us, the PowerPoint presentation?
Can we make it available? It is on the website.
Great, thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Also like to note that I think it's important we all do our part. I know that younger generations don't necessarily have a lot of kids, and I want to congratulate Councilmember Campillo. We have a kid on the way. Yes. My wife and I have 4. We all have to do our part. But in all seriousness, this could be a major issue for us. And also, the increased population around the United States in our history has been in large part through migration. Mayor Minto just mentioned the Italian and Irish backgrounds, but it's important to continue that migration in order for us to continue to have a vibrant and strong economic system. So it's important to look at this regionally and how it impacts our economic systems and our future. So thank you so much. Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you for that comment, Chair. I promise that on the day my son is born in about 30 days, I will be thinking about the economic benefit he's bringing about. So appreciate your comments. Yeah. Well, it's spending into the economy, right? Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you so much. Very insightful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, we just have upcoming meetings. Our next meeting is going to be a Public Safety Committee meeting, but it'll be a joint Transportation, Regional Planning, and Borders Committee meeting on October 6th at 9 a.m. Thank you. And then we will have our regularly scheduled Public Safety Committee meeting on November 17th at 1 p.m. Is it going to be here again in November? Maybe, maybe not.
Chair, the October 6th meeting, I believe, is at Caltrans. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you for the clarification. That meeting will be at Caltrans headquarters. And the meeting in November, I guess we'll let you know if it's going to be here or elsewhere. It is going to be here? Okay. We're not going to be kicked out by then? We're still here? All right. Any last comments?
I just wanted you to know I won't be at that October 6th meeting, so I'll make sure I get my alternate here.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Minto. We will adjourn this meeting at 1:49 p.m. Thank you so much.